Welcome to Breaking the Standard, where we are closing a communication and knowledge gap for small businesses and GovCon. I'm Aubrey Gainfort, and today we have very special guest William Randolph back with us. William, welcome.
Hello, hello. Good to be with you.
I'm so glad to have you back. And for our listeners who might not know who you are, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. William Randolph, retired federal government contracting officer. I was honored to be selected to the senior executive service before I retired. Did 26 years doing all things acquisition, both contracts and program office. Retired in 2016, did a little bit of consulting around the DC metro area, and then started my own government contracting company in
Mhm,
2019, training and development company called Think Acquisition.
mhm. And if you haven't heard them previously, William is not a stranger to the show. So you should go back and check out his episodes because they're very informative and he's also just a lot of fun to chat with. But today we're going to be talking about the micro purchase threshold and why small businesses need to know about it. So maybe we should just start with, can you explain to our listeners what the micro purchase threshold is?
Sure. So inside of federal government, all of the buying happens. The micro purchase threshold is literally the very first level of buying. It happens basically from 1 cent all the way to $10,000. Now, what's the unique characteristic of this level of buying is that it can be done with the government purchase card, called the GPC, sometimes known as the P card, but it's basically a credit card. So the government has over 1 million credit card holders inside of the whole of government. And those individuals have been trained and now are empowered to do micro purchase buying at or below the micro purchase threshold of $10,000.
I hope you were all listening to that because that's a lot of people that hold a credit card, if we're just going to call it that, or the GPC.
Yeah.
And I guess what's the difference, between like because small businesses usually, and a lot of my listeners want to work in GovCon, are usually looking to be a contract holder. Like, what is the difference between micro purchasing versus some of the traditional contracting types of things that small businesses are looking at because they might not know. I think a lot of people are surprised when they hear about market purchase threshold in the first place. So what are like the main differences?
Yeah, I think there are three. And I always consider micro purchases as swimming in the kiddie pool. Okay, instead of going into the ocean and working on your stroke, crossing the Atlantic.
That's a
Like
good analogy. I
go,
like that.
yeah, go swim in the kiddie pool. It's still water there. You still got to learn how to swim, but start there. So that first level, there's a couple of things. First, there is no requirement to have a SAM registration. So all of the things that we have to do as government contractors, we have to do to be seen and to be validated as a government contractor. That very first one is a SAM registration. No requirement for a SAM registration. I think the second level is this is the area where the lowest level of maturity actually can be successful for you because there's only two criteria for being able to be a vendor at this level. One, it's got to be something that the government buys.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's got to be something of value.
Hmm.
And two, it has to be priced at a level at or below $10,000. That's it. That's it. That's the only two criteria. And then I think the third thing that is interesting at this level is I like to believe that if done correctly, those micro purchases can have connective tissue to the next level up. And the next level up is friendly environment. The simplified acquisition
Hmm.
threshold, you're still in friendly territory as a small business. The rules are in your favor. The nuances are still in your favor at that next level up. So if you can use micro purchasing as a business development strategy where you can gain some past performance, learn how water flows inside the government, get the language down, get the relationships down, build some past performance, that gives you the connective tissue to the next level up, but it's still in a favorable environment.
Well, you basically kind of answered my next question, but I might ask it anyway. It sounds like it's really crucial if you're not familiar or haven't worked with the government. Not that jumping into a contract is a bad thing, but it sounds like this is a really great stepping stone that, you know, working with the federal government, we're very different than other, customers. And so if I'm understanding what you're saying for people who aren't familiar with this language is that as long as it's $10,000 or less, then they can be on the micro purchase threshold. And then SAM can be a real headache for a lot of companies. So they don't have to be on there. So that's great. That's a real win. And then I guess when it comes to payment, because when contractually there are different requirements for companies to be paid. So if they're being paid with a credit card or they're being paid with a government credit card, it's very much like a normal transaction.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. One of the things I tell people is you can be having a conversation about requirements in the morning, and you can be under contract in the afternoon, and money in your bank account the next day. It's literally functions just like a credit card, like anywhere else in the commercial environment. So the speed of the sales cycle, as you know, in the normal long version of government contracting, is often counted in months,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In the micro purchases, we're talking about hours and at least days at the longest,
Mm-hmm.
because it is is literally an instantaneous process. Once you can come to a meeting of the minds on value and the trade-off for price, then it's just a credit card swipe.
Um, I'm asking an off script question because I usually put out an outline for all of our guests. So, and it just came to me. So I guess, do agencies differ on, everybody has a GPC, but I guess what can small businesses look for in terms of who would potentially have micro purchase threshold needs versus, because like, in my experience, at FEMA, if you're having an emergency, sometimes they have to immediately buy supplies and stuff. And then if you're in, response mode or recovery mode, or if you need like a generator from somewhere, but how do they find that kind of information to say like, okay, maybe this agency wouldn't be using this, or,
Yeah,
what types of things are on that?
sure.
Which will probably lead into my next question for you. But like, where do they start to look for those things?
So I think it's a couple of things. First is there's an intuitive nature to the micro purchases. When you think about back office functions, every agency has the need for back office functions:
Mm-hmm.
postage, shipping, shredding, those types of activities. So, first is just putting yourself in the mindset of any government agency has these back office functions that need to occur. And oftentimes the government doesn't make large contracts for these back office activities. Second is understanding the organization, knowing thy customer. So your target agencies, if you look at their normal spend, when you go into USA Spending or FPDS&G and look at their normal spend, their purchase card spend is just a slice of what they normally buy. Okay, so when you think about organizations that buy spare parts, they're large agencies that are in the business of buying spare parts and bolts and pieces and repair parts. Their micro purchases is going to look just like that. It's just going to be smaller. They're going to be bolts, onesie twosies, repair pieces, onesie twosie.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Mm-hmm.
can look at their larger spend and draw some conclusions on their smaller spend. And then the third is there are some things that every organization just has. For instance, training.
Mm-hmm.
Every organization must train their folks. Every organization must have recruiting. Every organization must have branding and marketing material or
Oh,
writing
okay.
or copy. So
Mm.
there are some things that go across all agencies that if it's for one, it's usually for all: leadership training, coaching for their executives, intern training, indoctrination, all types of activity that's helping even speakers or coaches, things of that nature. If you want to invite a speaker in for an event or something, all organizations have that type of activity. So it's just thinking about that from a broad perspective. What are the common threads across all agencies? What are their back office activities? And then looking at their larger spend and drawing some similarity conclusions for what they would be purchasing at a smaller level.
That's really great advice. And I hope everyone's hearing that it's not just supplies or services, it's both. So, use the same resources that we've talked about on other episodes when you're doing your research on what's happening within a different agency. And just you might need to just do a little bit of a different filter. But um, this is the question I've been looking forward to asking you. I really think that micro purchasing could be a game changer for small businesses when it comes to working with the federal government. But if they wanted to get into micro purchasing, how would they do that? And what would be an option for them, which you might have an option for me, but how would companies get involved to actually do a micro purchase transaction with the federal government?
Yeah, so I think the first step of that is it's relationship based. That you have to have some understanding, knowing thy customer. That's one of my favorite go-to sayings is know thy customer. So you have
Mm-hmm.
to have some relationship because there's no sam.gov, if you will, for micro purchases. There's no place where the government hosts their micro purchases. These are relationships. They happen, they're transactional. So you have to be known or they have
Mm-hmm.
to be able to be found. So that's number one. Second, if you're not known and they're looking, then you have to be in the area where they're looking. And one of the ways, one of the things I've shared with you is we're building a place where we can encourage the government to come look. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Today, there's lots of places for products. If you wanted to buy medical devices or gloves or masks or spare parts, there's the Amazon business of the world. There's Home Depot, Lowe's, all the big box stores. They have places online where you can buy micro purchase products. But when you think about services,
Mm-hmm.
consulting services, or any other type of micro purchase scaled at $10,000 or less, there's no one place to do that. So when we were doing that in our company, we used micro purchasing as a training development and training for our training business, a business
Mm-hmm.
development tool. We utilized it, and over the first 2 years of our business, we did over $280,000 worth of micro purchases.
Wow.
So when we looked at that, it's like, wow, how do we scale that? Because it's small effort for outsized value in terms of time in terms of and as compared to resources out or revenue out. It
Mm-hmm.
was in our favor. So we said, how do we scale that? So we went into the lab and said, oh, we got to build a storefront. We got to get in front of more eyeballs. That's our strategy. So we went into the lab and said, we're going to build our own storefront. So Think Acquisition can put all of their microservices out so we can drive traffic to it and attract the eyeballs. So we started building that. And one day it was like, wait a minute, if we build that for us, we could build that for everybody. So
Mm.
imagine allowing multiple government purchase card holders to be able to come to one place to see vendors and their various storefront offerings in one place online. So we built it. It's called micromarket.co, and it is a two-sided marketplace where we're inviting vendors to come in, set up an account, and build a storefront. Think of it like a Etsy or a Shopify for government purchase services. So that's what we're building. We've got It's open for vendors to come and join. We've got 71. I just did the count this morning. We've got
Wow.
71 vendors on the platform already.
That's
And we're going to be,
amazing.
thank you. And we're going to be opening up to the government on January 2nd.
So I love this. And we had talked about this before, which was primarily one of the reasons I thought micro purchasing was such a great topic. And it's so smart for a company to be involved with micro market. I guess what's the criteria for them to be able to be a part of it? They just have to be like a legitimate business
Legitimate business. Yep. We
and
ask we ask a couple questions up front. It's like
mm-hmm,
how long has the business been going?
mm-hmm,
And what city and state is your business licensed? Because we want people to be licensed.
right, right, right.
And then the third is, do you have goods and services that the government purchases, and can they be priced at $10,000 or less? That's it. That's it.
It's so cool because it will give companies, I think, that might have not thought that they had an opportunity to work with the government to be able to work with the government because contracts are great. I mean, you and I both are,
Yeah,
they've been a part of our DNA for a long time,
long time.
but getting to a contract is a different story. And then
Yes.
like learning the contract and then your first contract is very different. And then like, you have those stumbles along the way. So I love the fact that this could be a like stepping stone and then they could build a relationship with like I'm going to use the EPA. They could
Yes.
build a relationship with them. And then if something came up and they were small enough that it was, not $1 million and it was something that they could cut their teeth on, they could
Yes.
do that. So I love this. I mean, Anything that's small business, anything that's like small business, like, because this is just, I mean, think about it, right? Like you could literally not have anything, and then in 2 days you could have done like $5,000, $10,000
yes,
in
yes,
revenue for selling
absolutely,
something. Like,
absolutely, absolutely.
um,
One of the things I always say is that I think somebody could, but I would not encourage someone to have micro purchases as their only business strategy.
right.
It's a good place to start. You don't have to stay there. It's a good place to start. But where else could you get in front of multiple government agencies at one time? And maybe you only have one or two offerings, but if you pick the right offerings, we talk about the back office functions, we talk about the cross-cutting office, cross-cutting offers, you could sell that same thing time and
Mm-hmm.
time and time and time again. And
Mm-hmm.
here's the real value proposition. You deliver value the first time, but really you're getting paid to come in and ask more questions. It's a business development tool. So you're getting
Oh,
paid to come inside, live in the tent, okay, to provide value, get some past performance, get a little bit of revenue. But the most important thing is while you're in the tent, hey, what else hurts? Okay? What
right.
else is what else is eating your lunch? And
Mm.
then you have just built a competitive advantage for yourself that you can act upon at the next level. You go back in the lab, build something, and it's like, hey, guess what? I got a pilot for you. You know, 99.99. Let's come on, let's do something under $10,000, and it starts all over again. It's a business development model. It's a business development
Love
strategy.
that. So you said past performance. So I'm going to ask this because that's, a hot topic for, small businesses and stuff. So is there a limit because of there being a micro purchase that they could use that or can't use that, or that is fair game?
That's fair game. There's no limit. When we in this business of government contracting, we're in this race to get all the logos on our capability statement. No one ever asks you like, hey, on that fourth logo over there, so how large was that contract? No one ever asked that question. It's
Mm-hmm.
social proof that you know how to play the game. You know the language, you can speak the language, and you know how water flows. And that's the value proposition of the logos on the capability statement. It's social proof. There's no dollar number. No one ever tells you to put a dollar number under the logo.
I mean, I loved this before, but I love this even more now because it's like you can't really lose. It's like you can use it on past performance. It's working with the federal government. You're going to get paid, and there's really no delay because it's not like with a contract where you have to invoice and wait for it get approved. It's a
Yeah.
credit card, so you're going to get paid pretty quickly.
And you get to ask more questions.
Now, on the
You get
business
to ask.
development thing, that's so smart because once you get in and you have that in and you have the visibility to be able to see what a customer potentially needs and wants, or maybe don't know that they need and want, which is like
Right.
the winning ticket,
Yes.
then they can, have that conversation. So that's so smart. Is there a limit? I guess in the number of transactions that can be done, as long as it's underneath the monetary amount, they can do as many as they want.
They can, yes. Now,
Okay.
I always advise my clients or people I talk to about micro purchases, don't put your credit card holders in a bad place. So don't try to do a $10,000 one month and a $10,000 the next month and a $8,000 the next month. Don't put them in a bad place. So think
Mm-hmm.
about the things that they're requiring. Split purchases. This is what I'm talking about. Split
Right.
purchases. So
Right.
if you know it's a larger thing, play the game the right way. Okay, I still bleed contracting officer, so I believe in playing the game the right way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
However, there are opportunities and there are strategies out there that you can help your credit card holders devise strategies and tactics that are you do the pilot and maybe then you have the connective tissue to the next thing. Again, and the next thing is up to $250,000. So again, you
Right.
start here, you don't stay here.
No, I truly think this is such a smart way for companies to be able to get experience, get their feet wet and then be able
Traction.
to move up because then, I mean, 250 is still a lot of money for
A
a
lot.
small business. Like
Absolutely.
that's probably your payroll, your overhead, maybe you'll be able to pay yourself, like who knows.
Absolutely.
But I just I don't know why this didn't come up more because ever since I started talking about it with you, I've been sharing it with a ton of the small businesses and guests that I've had on the show, and they're all like, why didn't I not hear about this? And I'm like, they probably don't want to talk about it. You know, it's not, it's like, and it's not a bad thing. It's just, like they want, contracts because, we
Yeah,
want to
of
have
course, of
competition and
course.
all those things. But there are still minor things like pens,
Yes,
cups, like all the
things.
random things that we need.
The
So,
things. Yes,
yeah.
absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
aside from advising small businesses to participate in micro market and the micro purchase threshold, what other advice would you give to small businesses that are working in GovCon or want to get into GovCon?
Yeah, here's the holy trinity. Know thyself. Okay, know who you are. Know what you do. Know what you do well. Okay, have a competitive. Identify that competitive advantage. That thing that sets you aside from everybody else. So know thyself.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, know thy customer. Okay, know thy customer. So understand what the demands are. I think I looked at the numbers yet, and they aren't finalized for 23, but we're waiting for DOD. The DOD has a 90-day lag, but right now there are $701 billion worth of spend that happened in FY 23,
Wow.
and it's not done yet. So that means there's going to be some more. But right now, the high water mark is $701 billion. That's too big to be targeted thinking about $701 billion. You have to know thy customer. So know who your agencies are, who your competitive advantage serves, and then
Mhm.
be hyper focused in terms of understanding what they buy, knowing their spend and how they buy it. So that's number two. And then number three is wow the crowd. Whenever you have an opportunity, you've got to deliver. You got to have outsized delivery because it is that reputation that will be the deciding factor and the distinguishing factor and the discriminator going forward. Your capability will lead. People talk certifications and they're great, the golden keys and all the things, but in the end, your capability leads, your certifications follow. So know
Mm,
thyself, know thy customer, and deliver extraordinary value.
I think that's gold right there. And if our listeners want to get in touch with you, what would be the best way to do that?
So right now, I'm putting all of my eggs in the micro market basket. So info at micromarket.co. Tell them reach out. I'll be welcome to talk to anyone about the idea, about the new entrant participant, as well as the growth minded small business. So reach out. I'll be happy to share with you my story, my journey, how I do things. And this is how I put a food on the table. I don't know if I ever told you or not, but my very first contract was $4,800.
Oh, I didn't know that.
$4,800 was a micro purchase credit
Wow.
card transaction for a half day seminar. Very first contract. And
That's
all
incredible.
all
And
I
look where
needed
you are
was
now.
and all well, it gave me the proof. Even though I had
Hmm.
lived 26 years on the other side of the table, I needed that first proof point that's like it works.
Hmm.
It works. And it hurts me to see people spend 15, $20,000 pursuing 5 million, $7 million, contracts
I
when
know.
and they're looking for the first thing when it's a much more effective and efficient way to get that proof point. Again, you don't
Hmm.
have to build a business here, but it's a great place to start.
Well, I really hope that you listen to this. And then if you need to go find William, I'm going to link all of his information in the show notes. And if you get a chance to go back and listen to the other episodes, I'm always so excited to have him here. And do not miss out on the opportunity because he will talk to you. So reach out because
Right.
he loves this subject matter. And just like me, he wants businesses to succeed. So don't miss out. And if you have any questions for me or for William, please email me at breakingthestandard@gmail.com and make sure to go find me on LinkedIn. And until next time, bye.
Bye bye.